right, today I'm joined by Leore Spira. Sorry, I'm going to record over again. Today we're joined by Leore Spira. Leore, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, everyone.
So you and I were joking. We've kind of known each other for many years on LinkedIn and all the communities, but yet I don't think we've actually ever spoken to each other.
No, I think this is the first time we're meeting face to face.
That's absolutely true. And then remind me, where are you based out of again?
So I'm based in Tel Aviv, Israel. Super hot today, 100% humidity. You don't want to go outside. We're staying in rooms with AC. But it's super lovely here.
Awesome. Well, dad joke. I think this episode of the podcast is going to be even hotter than that. So why don't we just jump right in? I have an intro I'm going to read out just so the audience knows who you are, even though I know who you are. So Leore is a leader in revenue operations with the relentless pursuit of growth and solving problems. She has a love for building profitable and sustainable revenue streams from the ground up, leveraging standard sales as a service SaaS, go-to-market metrics, strategy, and benchmarking, and it stems from her bigger purpose to change things for the better. And so, like most revenue operations leaders, she thrives under intense pressure and challenges. In every company she's joined, she says that RevOps is in her DNA. I love that. This is a great intro, by the way. Probably one of the
Thank you.
best I've read.
Thank you. It took me a lot of time to write it, and actually trying to send the message that how RevOps, how I feel about RevOps and see RevOps, and I think you and we started speaking about revenue operation, mostly sales operations back then because nobody knew what is RevOps. But I think so it's like I truly believe in the mission and vision. So for me, it's like from joining a company and actually establishing and building not just the function, but also all the processes and trying to send the message internally and bring everyone together to the table and not just speak with one another, but also work together with one process. It's more than it's like music to management and team ears. So orchestrating that, I think it's fabulous. I
Yeah.
love it.
So just to go back to that, like I started posting on LinkedIn around the COVID timeframe. Everyone
Yeah.
was indoors, and I had a lot more time on my hands than I thought. So I started posting on LinkedIn, and at first I spent way too much time on it. I'd probably spend 30 minutes a day, really crafting what I'm going to write on LinkedIn. Now I just dial it down to 5 minutes. And I think a lot of folks think, oh my gosh, this guy Jeff is just spending so much time on LinkedIn. Like, no, I'm not. I'm really just spending 5-10 minutes. I shout something out into the ether. And if people vibe with it, all good. And you know what? It's opened a lot of doors, I think, for both you and I. So kudos to
Yeah.
you for always sharing, something that's so relevant or something that's top of mind for you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think it's super easy. Like living, I think I started posting on LinkedIn through that time as well. We had lots of time, but also I think this was the best time to really, speak about RevOps because of the situation, and it started then, and now we're seeing it more now because of the mind, like changing the mindset from moving from growth to efficiency and productivity, and I think it's really easy to write about revenue operations or methodologies and metrics and processes just because when you live it and you believe in it and you see the value on your day-to-day job, it's just super easy because eventually you're not just doing good to the company, you're doing good with the teams, you're doing good with yourself, you're doing good with your career and self-development. So it's like it becomes not just piece of cake, but I think more of more than a hobby or just something to post on LinkedIn.
Yeah, absolutely. So, before every interview, I always have a prep call with our guests. And you and I were talking about the startup scene in Tel Aviv and Israel and how great some of the innovation that's happening in that area of the world. And so when I'm thinking of startups, I've worked for startups for the last decade. It can be chaos. It could be fast moving parts. And that's because a lot of the infrastructure just isn't there and it's fragmented. Like you'll log in and your head of sales is the CRM admin. Maybe even your founder CEO is an admin in all the tools. And so there's a real thought around when they build in that first revenue operations leader, there's a goal to centralize those functions with someone who has a core competency in it. I'd love to explore that topic with you a little bit. Like, How do you turn chaos into order through potential centralization with revenue operations?
Um, First, you need to sell the idea and make sure that not just the team, the go-to-market teams, especially of course sales and marketing and even customer success, but also the founders, the management, the leader, like the CEO, they believe in transparency and also 360 customer overview. And it's not just a buzzword; it actually, making sure that you're bringing everyone to one platform, CRM, and it can be Salesforce, HubSpot, whatever you want. But also, you want to make sure that you build a seamless process, reduce the friction by connecting everyone with one another. Like you sort of making sure that the conversation is seamless and you can move the information and the data from one department and one team to the other without even having a short Zoom call, just because you want to make sure that at every time or at every point that you want to know something about either the pipeline or the conversion rates or the progress of the team, or who is doing a good, who's not, how can we support or improve the performance of a specific person, an individual, or a specific team, then you need to have everything together and you need to have the data. So, so to do, and I think I'm working at startups. It's an addiction. Everybody's telling me that sometimes I need to go back to. I started my career in a corporate, and but I think in the past 9 years or 10 years, I'm working as different startups. But it's kind of addiction because you come to this chaos. You join, you join teams that they don't know where is what and what is where and who is talking to who and who is holding the information and what is happening with the customer, or are we having a lot of like pipeline of prospects or not, and blah blah blah, and then um, bringing our magic or bringing our knowledge for the first time by listening to the pain and listening to everyone complaining. I think if you're a good RevOps, and you don't need to be a good RevOps by experience, you need to listen and then digest the information in your head and start, writing it down in a way that it's not just a process, but also you're making sure that everyone are going to be a stakeholder of a specific milestone in the process, and then you move forward. You design this architecture by writing it, and then once you deploy it and start implementing in the systems, then a dream is coming true. So I think, yeah, and I think this is what's most satisfying, because usually you will change your in startups, you will change the process, I think, every day or every minute and not just every month, and eventually you will want to optimize the process, but you won't have the opportunity to do so because everything is changing so fast and teams are growing, or employees are leaving like all the time, every time, so you don't have stability with the organization. And I think, and this is the fun, because you always, like, you need to make sure that you have, once you have a good and simple process, then you can just scale, not just by revenue, but also with everything, with the optimization, with the data, with the metrics, with the transparency that you're creating, and the conversation that you're making sure that you're having with all go to market teams.
So I keep thinking, in corporate America or the globe, you mentioned the word corporate, but when you look at startups, they're corporations too, but they just don't act quote unquote corporate. And there's a phrase that I always think: when you try to introduce change to a large audience, you'll hear this phrase that says, "That's the way we've always done it."
Yeah.
Right? There's inertia, there's a status quo. So the energy, the object wants to stay at rest there. The second thing that I think of with a startup, though, is the opposite. Well, I'm doing it this way because no one has told me how to do it. There's no process. So I'm going to do it the way I knew how to do it at my last company. They bring their old habits into the new company. It might work, actually. And so I always think there's a couple of key themes that you'd mentioned in your anecdote there that I think is really important. 360 degrees, meaning the ability to see an object or the problem from different angles, and maybe you know turn the cube this way or that way, you might see something new. Transparency, the ability to get everyone to see the same information the information the same way, but maybe with their diverse and problem experiences and skill sets to see something new. Connections, right? Working as a team, I think is critically important. And the stakeholders, accountability. So someone there to hold the team to account. And I think revenue operations is a fantastic opportunity of that. So, you were working at I think a construction technology company recently. And one of the things that, or I mean, one of the things you mentioned to me was, um, some of the transformational processes. What are some things that you think you've had to transform recently?
So I'm working in BuildOts, and it's a construction tech company. And as I mentioned on our conversation earlier, so our stakeholders are coming from from construction companies. So basically, they're used to traditional habits, or most of them didn't have the experience working with technology at all. Like all they know is Excel spreadsheets, because eventually they need to manage project like building buildings, and they don't need technology to do so, because and again, because one a project, or they can even use the technology, but it's very simple and not that innovative. Mainly maybe managing suppliers, because they don't need AI or any kind of technology to help them build a building. So what BuildOut is doing, so we're basically building a CRM, but it's not just a CRM for constructions companies, but also we're making sure that we are helping them to monitor the progress of the building of the project, and create alerts comparing the actual progress of the project with the design. So, and this is what the AI and algorithm is doing. So they can monitor the project on real time, and it's very, by the way, very very similar to what revenue operations is doing, because as they want to create transparency and create alerts, an alert system to monitor the progress of the project, we're doing the same. We're creating processes, and we're creating infrastructure to help the go-to-market teams to make sure that they are on top of their pipeline, on top of their leads, on top of their onboarding projects, et cetera, et cetera. And I think that you can see how technology is doing so well with helping everyone to just not just contribute to the process, but also contribute the data, and also helping us transform the data into business insights to make sure that we're sending a message, or we're helping management or go-to-market leaders to understand exactly what is happening in the field. And this is what's creates transparency. So you're not just you're you can monitor the team progress, but you can also see how the company or how the business is doing. And I think, and this is what's so beautiful in this profession, or in what we're doing.
That's awesome. By the way, I'm going to backtrack that question because I think probably don't want to. I've revealed that I said past tense at Bill Dot. So I'm just going to rephrase that question again and tell the editing staff to change it. Um, so I know you're working at a company called Bill Dots. You mentioned that it's a construction technology company. I'm curious about some of the processes that you've had to radically transform there. And then we'll pause, and then I'll have them edit it. Okay. Oh, so when you're working in a business like that, where your CRM, I'm not sure which one you're on, Salesforce or HubSpot, but you can use it as not just
So
Salesforce. Okay, great. So not just an engine for tracking commercial activity, but also the post-sale implementation activity. So you're essentially using it as a project management tool. I think the power of that can be awe-inspiring for a company that is more analog than digital. Seeing Salesforce do something that powerful, I'm curious how you've had to maybe sell up or change hearts and minds with a business that might have been, that might come from a different industry altogether. Like, for example, I worked previously at a transportation company at the intersection of technology, and the cultures were very interesting. You had a lot of people on the transportation side of the house who've never worked in tech, and you had a bunch of tech people. And so getting those two people together in one room, the cultures kind of clashed. And so there's a lot of selling. I'm curious how you had to deal with that.
Um, I think first in Israel, like Salesforce is very strong. So in most companies, you will see Salesforce as the ruling CRM. Even in at early stage startup, although it's a bit more expensive than HubSpot, just because I think Salesforce allows you to be more agile, and you can also use the platform to build an actual 360 customer overview. And this is something that I've been doing in three different startups. Um, when I was building and establishing the teams there, is like it's very easy to design a solution and design milestones and a seamless process and bring everyone into the table and work in one platform, see everything, and then you also you're ensuring that you're creating transparency, but it also gives you the opportunity to make sure that every stakeholder is responsible for a specific milestone in the process. So, and sometimes, for me, like when I joined BuildOts, one of the goals and my KPIs for the beginning was to implement a software like Salesforce because, and I think you can also see it in several startups, like like the change of management mindset or the founders mindset, like they do see the value in bringing everyone together into one tool, especially at early stage. Also, we are very trying to be very careful with the budget, so we want to make sure that we build a tech stack that is suitable not just for the sales team but also for other stakeholders in the process, because you don't want to start bringing too many tools and integrated with several platforms or different one. Like we want to use one platform that brings everyone to the table. And I think also, and this is something that I've learned throughout my career, like you don't want to exaggerate with bringing all the tools just because this sales rep used to is used to it because in his previous company he worked with it, or this CSM, she worked with this tool because, and this is how it helped her back then to project to manage the project or manage the onboarding process. That's, you need to think outside the box, but you also need to ensure that you're using your resources smartly and carefully, because then what you're doing is you're damaging the data. So it's like we're I think we're juggling with few different, I call it the four pillars, like the people, the process, the enablement, and the technology. And we need to make sure that these four pillars are speaking with one another and not just managing themselves in a chaos.
I knew we get along. By the way, my four pillars of revenue operations are very similar. I always say it's very cheesy because I like being cheesy. Strategy and execution are peas in a pod. PEAS, process
Um,
enablement instead of process, which you mentioned, advisory and systems. So yeah, very similar. This is why we should have met earlier.
you
Very.
see, see, yeah, I think, I think so. For me, advisory is there with the processes. Strategy sits there also with the people and processes, and also technology, because you cannot build, like, you cannot bring tools or build a tech stack without a strategy. You cannot build processes without understanding the company or each go-to-market channel strategy, because eventually what we're doing is we're helping the go-to-market leaders to understand if their own strategy is good or not, or we can also recommend them how to improve it so they can not just build a scalable process, or but also a scalable team, and also a scalable company. So everything is like, so I divided to four major pillars, just because we also want to make sure that we are focused. We're focused on one goal, and we're making sure that our teams knows how to use the systems, but they also understand the process, and they also understand how their teammates process, or what it means when they go to the onboarding. Let's say sales are so focused on sales, like they manage opportunities, they manage everything. But when it comes to upsell or renewals, and it's some companies, sales are managing that. Some companies account managers sits under either sales or customer success, so it's very, very vague even in regards to structure. So but everyone needs to understand what is everyone is doing in the process, because this is how we're also making sure that we are contributing to the success of each team. So customer success contributes to marketing, and also sales, and sales to marketing and customer success, and marketing to the full funnel as well. So yeah, so I think this is how I see it.
That's perfect. Yeah, I think the way to think about that is defining your process end to end, a life cycle, so to speak, and each step along the way has a RACI, or a responsible, accountable, contributing, informed. Who owns that part of the process? What do you do? So, what are your standard operating procedures there? If it's well documented, fantastic, even better, actually. And then the systems are fit for purpose, right? There's not a lot of workarounds. You're not having to tab out to different tools. And then you have these conversion rates, because you can see how much is getting through the next stage. And those conversion rates allow you to see, to judge whether you're improving a process or not. One thing that I always thought was interesting was speed to lead. Speed to lead is a very measurable metric. In fact, the naming convention of it suggests so, and it's one of the first metrics that I try to teach new folks getting into revenue operations. I'm like, here, let me show you a real example of a metric that you can measure right now. Speed to lead. It's in the name, and the goal is when someone submits the name on a form on the website, like a demo request, get a stopwatch, turn it on, and see how long it takes for one of their SDRs to email or call you. If they don't call you until tomorrow, that's a bad sign. Go to their competitor's website, do the same thing. If they call you in 5 minutes, you probably know who's outperforming the other, like right away, just in that 5 minutes.
Oh, that's good. I
Yeah,
never
you
thought
can
about
think
it.
about it. Yeah, so
Yeah.
for those out there who are looking for jobs and you're thinking about this new shiny brand, test that.
Yeah, I think, yeah, but I think you also what's changing is I started working based on account based or ABX methodologies. Like it's no more ABM, it's ABX, customer led approach. I think we see the transition of moving from marketing generating leads, and then SDRs are calling them like in between 5 minutes to 2 hours, depends on the threshold. But like it's more it's we transition into targeting accounts, right, and into educating the market more, and not just having calls all the time. And I think it also, and this is a metric that I started recently to measure a lot I did it in two companies, like understanding more of the attribution and contribution. Yeah, we are moving to, and we can see it, to an enterprise motion sale methodology, and then the cycle becomes much longer sometimes, even for SaaS companies, just because they are being very careful before they bring a solution and pay for a solution immediately, like they did before. I think the recession times taught us, or teaching us, that companies are very careful with building their tech stack. They want to manage their budgets very carefully, and they want to bring the must-have tools, as we are, by the way, revenue operations. We are bringing the must-have tools before we are just before going all over the place and bring some unuseful tools to the go-to-market teams. And yeah, and I think this helps you also better understand and create transparency on the cycle, on the life cycle of not just the lead, but also the company, the prospect and the customer. And I think also investing a lot of resources and investing in the process and measuring, like building metrics on how you grow the lifetime value of the customer instead of just bringing new logos all the time. And yeah, bringing new logos is important. We have to make sure that we are doing that. This is how a company is growing. But you also need to make sure that your customer is happy, because then, and this is a great metrics, because you can use it later to land and expand and use it for marketing purposes to generate more leads based on case studies, references, and other activities that customers as ambassadors give you as as a gratitude to the great experience that they're having with the product.
So I've always
So
said that the last 2 years have been, renewal is the new, right? We've always
yeah,
played offense for so long, acquisition, acquisition, acquisition. And
yeah,
nowadays it's, that upsell, that expansion, that renewal, that's become a core focus as businesses have started to slim down to their core. So I know we're getting to the end of the show. There's a last segment that I did warn you about a little bit, that imagine yourself going into a time machine to revisit your younger self. I'm curious what advice you'd give young Leore as you're entering into your career.
don't give up. Or keep saying no. I'm doing that right now, but I think since revenue operations is very new, sometimes I get frustrated why companies are not understanding the purpose, why they're not seeing the value, why they are seeing us more of a technical than a strategic point of view, why they're not understanding how we can contribute to the decision making process, but help them become more data driven and actually shed some light on questions that they are afraid to ask. And I can understand that, but and sometimes I have these moments of giving up, but I know that I'm still telling myself, don't give up. Like, we are important. Like, if customers, like, for example, customer success 10 years ago, nobody knew what it is. We didn't, like, I remember when as a junior, we saw support people, but we did no CSMs, TOMs, or anything that is related to the customer relationship processes. So I do have hope for revenue operations. And yeah, and also keep saying no. Like, it's you're not going to be like, if you think that people are going to see you as a blocker, that's a shame, because eventually they would understand that you're saying no not just because you want to block them, because you want to help them not to do the same mistakes, or like block them from being inefficient, or just damage the data and clean it all the time. So
Well, thank you for joining us. For all the listeners, how can folks learn and connect with you?
so you can find me on LinkedIn. And I have my email address even on my LinkedIn, and you can shoot me a direct message. I'm trying to be very responsive. If I'm not answering, sometimes it takes me a day or two. But yeah, reach out on LinkedIn. I think it's the best channel today to have professional conversations.